Princess Nara stood at the tall window of her palace tower, watching the red sky of Velthara turn dark with enemy ships. The metal ships looked like giant insects as they dropped down from space. Each one carried thousands of Corvan soldiers, ready to take over her world. The princess pressed her hands against the cold glass. Her heart beat fast as she counted the ships. There were too many. Far too many for her people to fight. "Princess, you must come away from the window," said her guard captain. "It is not safe here." But Nara could not move. She had to see what was happening to her world. The Corvan Empire had finally come, just like her father had warned before. He died. The enemy had been planning this attack for many years. Down in the city below, people were running in the streets. Some carried bags with their most important things. Others helped old people and children get to the underground shelters. The sound of fear filled the air. Nara had studied the Corvan Empire since she was a child. They were a race of tall, strong warriors who loved war. They had already taken over 50 other worlds. They never showed mercy to the people they defeated. When the Corvans came, they either made you their slave, or they killed you. The first explosion started near the city walls. Bright flashes of light lit up the evening sky. The palace shook as the enemy plasma cannons fired at the defense towers. Nara watched her people's beautiful weapons try to fight back, but the Corvan ships just kept coming. A messenger ran into the tower room. "Princess, General Taman needs you in the war room right now." Nara took one last look at the battle outside. Her world was losing. She could see it already. The Corvan war machines were too strong, and there were too many of them. The war room was full of worried faces. Maps covered the big table in the center. Red lights showed where the enemy was attacking. There were red lights everywhere. General Taman looked up as Nara entered. His old face showed years of fighting, but she had never seen him look so worried. "Princess, the situation is very bad. The Corvans have landed in 12 different places, around the planet. Our armies are fighting hard, but we cannot stop them all." "How long do we have?" Nara asked. "Maybe 3 days before they reach the capital city. Maybe less." The general's voice was quiet and sad. Around the table, her other commanders looked down at their hands. These were brave soldiers who had never lost a battle on Velthara, but they had never fought an enemy like this before. "What about the human mercenaries?" asked Commander Yuna. "The ones Captain Dohyun brought here last month. Can they help us?" General Taman made an angry sound. "Humans? They are just a small group. Maybe 30 soldiers. What can 30 soldiers do against an army of millions?" But Nara remembered reading about humans in the old books. They were a young race that had only been traveling between stars for a few hundred years. Most aliens thought they were weak, because they were small and had no natural weapons like claws or thick skin. But the book said humans fought in strange ways that other races did not understand. "Where are the humans now?" Nara asked. "Captain Dohyun has been asking to meet with us," said Commander Yuna. "He wants to use something he calls special assets. I do not understand what that means." "Probably just human words for nothing," said General Taman. "They like to make their simple weapons sound important." Another explosion shook the palace. This one was closer than before. Through the war room windows they could see fires burning in the outer parts of the city. "Princess," said one of her advisors, "maybe we should think about surrender. If we give up now, the Corvans might let some of our people live." Nara felt anger rise in her chest. "Never. My father died fighting to keep this world free. I will not give it away without a battle." "But Princess, we cannot win," said the advisor. "Look at the numbers. For every one of our soldiers, they have 100. "The humans have asked to meet with you personally," said Commander Yuna quietly. "Captain Dohyun said it was very important." General Taman shook his head. "Do not waste time with them, Princess. We need to plan our defense of the capital." But something inside Nara made her curious about these humans. In all the old books she had read, humans never gave up, even when they should. They always found new ways to fight. "Bring Captain Dohyun here," she said. "Princess, I do not think—" General Taman started. "Now," Nara said firmly. 10 minutes later, A human walked into the war room. Captain Dohyun was shorter than most Veltharans, but he moved like a hunter. His dark eyes looked at the maps on the table, then at each person in the room. When he looked at Nara, she felt like he was seeing right into her thoughts. "Princess," the human said with a small bow, "I am sorry about what is happening to your world. Can you help us?" Nara asked directly. The human captain was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Maybe, but I need permission to put my people where they can do the most good." "What kind of help are you talking about?" asked General Taemin. "Precision strikes against high-value targets," said Captain Dohyun. The Veltharan officers looked confused. Nara could see they did not understand the human words. "You mean assassination?" she said. The human nodded slowly. "Yes, but from very far away. My best sniper can hit targets that other people think are impossible to reach." General Taemin laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. "You want to win a war with one gun? Sometimes one shot at the right target can change everything," said Captain Dohyun quietly. Another explosion hit somewhere in the city. The lights in the war room flickered. "The Corvin Supreme Commander is in that convoy, moving through the Thornspire." "Mountains," said Commander Yuna, pointing at the map. "Intelligence says he is personally leading the attack on our capital." Captain Dohyun walked over to the map. He studied it carefully. "How far is that mountain pass from here?" "About 12 kilometers, said Commander Yuna. The human was quiet for a long time. Then he looked up at Nara. "Princess, if I can put my sniper on that mountain peak there, he might be able to do something about your Supreme Commander problem." "Impossible," said General Taemin. 12 kilometers through mountain air, and the Corvin commander travels in an armored vehicle with energy shields. No weapon can reach him from that distance." Captain Dohyun smiled, but it was a cold smile. "Princess, humans have a saying. The word impossible is not in our dictionary." Nara looked at the map, then at the human captain, then at her worried commanders. Outside, her world was dying. Her people were running and hiding while the enemy grew stronger every hour. "Do it," she said. "Princess, no," said General Taemin. "Do not let these humans fill your head with false hope." But Nara had made her choice. "Captain Dohyun, you have permission to place your people wherever you think best. Do whatever you need to do." The human captain nodded. "Thank you, Princess. My sniper will be in position before dawn. Staff Sergeant Minho never misses his target." As Captain Dohyun left the war room, Nara walked back to the window. The enemy fires were burning brighter now. Soon the Corvins would be at the walls of her city. But for the first time since the invasion began, she felt a small spark of hope. Maybe the humans could not save her world. Maybe their weapons were not strong enough, and their numbers were too small. But they had not given up. And neither would she. On a mountain peak 12 kilometers away, a human sniper was getting ready to take a shot that would either save Velthara or mean nothing at all. Princess Nara watched the dark sky and waited to see which one it would be. Staff Sergeant Lee Minho had been lying on the cold mountain rock for 18 hours. His body was perfectly still, like a statue made of stone and metal. Only his eyes moved as he watched the distant valley through his rifle scope. The weapon in his hands was not like the energy guns that most aliens used. It was a railgun that could shoot a small piece of metal faster than most spaceships could fly. The bullet was made of tungsten, one of the hardest metals in the universe. When it hit something, it would go through armor like a knife through paper. But first it had to travel 12 kilometers through mountain air that moved and twisted like invisible rivers. The wind changed every few seconds. The air was thin up here, which meant the bullet would fly differently than it would at sea level, and the target was moving in a vehicle that had the best shields the Corvin Empire could make. Minho had done the math in his head 100 times. He had used his rifle's computer to check the numbers again and again. The shot was almost impossible. Almost. But Minho had made almost impossible shots before. On the planet Kepler Prime, he had hit a target 8 kilometers away during a thunderstorm. On the ice world of Titan Base, he had shot through a blizzard to save a whole city from enemy bombers. Other snipers called him lucky. Minho knew it was not luck. It was hours and hours of practice and understanding how bullets flew through different kinds of air. His radio crackled softly in his ear. "Minho, this is Captain Do-hyun. The target convoy is entering the mountain pass now. Do you have eyes on them?" Minho moved his rifle slightly and looked through the scope. Far below in the valley, he could see a line of armored vehicles moving along the narrow road. The vehicles looked like tiny toys from this distance, but his scope made them look much bigger. "I see them, Captain," Minho whispered into his radio. 12 vehicles total. The command vehicle is the big one in the middle. That's the one. Supreme Commander Gavrok is inside. The intelligence reports say his vehicle has level 5. Energy shields and reactive armor. Minho studied the command vehicle through his scope. It was twice as big as the other vehicles, and it had extra armor plates welded all over it. Energy fields shimmered around it like heat waves on a hot day. The vehicle was also moving in a zigzag pattern, never going straight for more than a few seconds. "I can see the shields," Minho said, "but I think I found a weak spot." "Where?" "The shield generators are on the sides of the vehicle, but there's a small gap where they connect to the main power unit. It's only open for maybe half a second every time the vehicle turns left." Captain Do-hyun was quiet for a moment. "Minho, even if you can hit that tiny gap, the bullet still has to go through the armor and find the target inside. And you only get one shot. If you miss, they'll know where you are." "I understand, Captain." In her palace tower, Princess Nara watched the convoy through her military satellite cameras. The images appeared on a big screen in the war room. She could see the human sniper on the mountain peak, a tiny dot against the rock. "This is madness," said General Taman. "That human is 12 kilometers away from his target. No one can make that shot." But Nara had been reading more about human snipers while she waited. The old military records told amazing stories about human marksmen who could hit targets that other aliens thought were impossible to reach. One human sniper had once hit an enemy commander from 15 kilometers away on a planet with double gravity and constant storms. "Maybe they can do things we cannot understand," she said quietly. On the mountain, Minho felt his heartbeat slow down. This always happened when he was about to take a very important shot. His body became very calm, and his mind became very clear. He could feel the wind on his face and hear it moving through the rocks around him. His rifle's computer was calculating wind speed, air pressure, and the exact distance to the target. But computers could not feel the tiny changes in the air that might push a bullet off course. Only experience could teach a sniper those things. The convoy was coming to the narrowest part of the mountain pass. Here, the vehicles had to slow down and move in a single line. This would be Minho's best chance. He watched the command vehicle through his scope. Left turn, right turn, straight for 3 seconds. Left turn again. The pattern was always a little different, but there was still a pattern. "Minho, you are cleared to take the shot," said Captain Do-hyun's voice in his ear. "Copy that, Captain." Minho took a deep breath and let half of it out. His finger rested lightly on the trigger. The command vehicle was making another left turn. In 2 more turns, it would be in the perfect position. He could see Supreme Commander Gavrok's vehicle clearly now. The alien commander thought he was safe inside his mobile fortress. The shields around his vehicle were strong enough to stop a missile. The armor could bounce off cannon shells, but Gavrok had never fought humans before. The vehicle made its next turn, then the next. Now it was moving straight down the road, exactly where Minho had predicted it would be. He squeezed the trigger. The railgun made almost no sound when it fired. There was just a soft click and a tiny flash of light, but the tungsten bullet that left the barrel was moving at 17% the speed of light. It screamed through the mountain air so fast that it created a brief trail of light behind it. Princess Nara watched the bullet's path on her screens. For a moment that felt like forever. The small piece of metal flew through the air toward its target. The bullet had to be perfect. If it was even a few centimeters off, it would miss completely. The tungsten core hit the command vehicle's shield at exactly the right spot. The energy field that was supposed to stop any attack flickered and failed for just a moment. The bullet punched through the gap and slammed into the vehicle's armor. The reactive armor exploded outward, trying to push the bullet away. But the tungsten core was moving too fast and was too hard. It went through the first layer of armor, then the second, then the third. Inside the command vehicle, Supreme Commander Gavrok was looking at a map when the bullet found him. The Corvan commander died instantly, never knowing what had killed him. The command vehicle rolled to a stop in the middle of the mountain pass. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the other vehicles in the convoy started moving in confused circles like animals that had lost their leader. Princess Nara stared at her screen in amazement. The impossible shot had worked. A human soldier had just killed the Supreme Commander of the Corvan invasion force with a single bullet from 12 kilometers away. Impossible, whispered General Taman. But it had happened, and now the real battle for Velthara could begin. On the mountain peak, Minho was already packing up his rifle. He had work to do. The war was not over yet. The news of Supreme Commander Gavrok's death spread through the Corvan invasion force like a disease. Radio channels that had been full of confident orders suddenly went quiet. Field commanders who had been advancing steadily toward their targets stopped moving and waited for new instructions that never came. Vice Commander Jackson was in his orbital command ship when he received the report. At first he could not believe it. Gavrok was supposed to be untouchable inside his armored command vehicle. The shields alone should have stopped any attack. "Sir," said his communications officer, "we are getting conflicting reports from ground units. Some commanders are requesting permission to retreat. Others are asking for new targets. The attack formations are breaking apart." Jackson looked at the tactical display showing Velthara below. Red dots marked the positions of Corvan forces all over the planet. But without Gavrok's central command, those forces were like a body without a brain. The Corvan Empire's military was built on strict obedience to higher ranks. Every soldier knew exactly who to obey and who to command. But when the top commander died suddenly, the whole system fell apart. Lower officers were afraid to make big decisions without permission from above. Princess Nara saw the confusion in the enemy ranks and knew this was her chance. She walked onto her palace balcony and activated the planetary emergency broadcast system. Her voice would now reach every Veltharan on the planet. "My people," she said. "The Corvan Supreme Commander is dead. A human sniper killed him with a single shot from impossible distance. The enemy is confused and scared. Now is the time to fight back." All across Velthara, resistance fighters who had been hiding came out of their shelters. These were ordinary people who had become warriors when their world was invaded. They had been waiting for a sign that the fight was not hopeless. In the capital city, a group of young Veltharans attacked a Corvan supply convoy. They used the confusion among the enemy soldiers to capture weapons and vehicles. Similar attacks started happening in dozens of other cities. Captain Do-hyun's human mercenaries began their own campaign against the invaders. The humans fought in small groups, hitting enemy positions and disappearing before the Corvans could respond. They seemed to appear from nowhere, strike with deadly precision, and vanish like ghosts. Corporal Kim Ji-won led a team that destroyed 3 Corvan communication towers in one night. The towers had been sending orders to ground units. Without them, many Corvan soldiers had no idea what they were supposed to do. Private Park Hyun-woo used his technical skills to hack into Corvan computer systems. He sent false orders that made enemy units march away from important targets. Some Corvan forces ended up attacking each other by mistake. But the most famous of all the humans was Staff Sergeant Minho. Stories about his impossible shot spread through both armies. Veltharan fighters told each other that the human sniper could hit any target anywhere on the planet. Corvan soldiers started to fear that death could come for them from any distance. Minho himself was already setting up for his next shot. Captain Do-hyun had given him a new target, the Corvan orbital defense platform that was shooting at Veltharan cities from space. "The platform is protected by energy shields," Captain Do-hyun explained as they studied satellite images. "But our intelligence says the shields have to drop for 3 seconds every hour to let supply ships dock." Minho looked at the tactical data. The platform was in orbit 300 kilometers above the planet. Shooting something in space from the ground was much harder than shooting something on land. He would have to account for the planet's rotation The platform's orbital speed, and the way atmosphere bent light. It's possible, he said finally. But I'll need to get to the highest mountain on the continent. Meanwhile, Vice Commander Jackson was getting angry. The invasion that was supposed to take 3 days was now in its second week, and his forces were no closer to victory. Veltharan resistance was growing stronger every day, and his own soldiers were becoming afraid to leave their bases. "Sir," said his tactical officer, "we could end this quickly with orbital bombardment. If we destroy their major cities, the resistance will collapse." Jackson thought about this. Orbital bombardment meant killing millions of innocent people. The Corvan Empire usually preferred to capture worlds with their populations intact. Dead. People could not work in the mines or farms, but Jackson was running out of options. Every day the war continued. More ships from other parts of the Corvan Empire had to be sent to help with the invasion. Resources that could be used to attack other worlds were being wasted on one stubborn planet. "Begin bombardment of the 3 largest cities," he ordered. "Maybe when the Veltharans see their homes burning, they will remember why resistance is pointless." Princess Nara received the warning from her orbital watch stations just minutes before the first bombardment began. Corvan ships in space were charging their plasma cannons and aiming at population centers. She ran to the war room where Captain Do-hyun was planning the next phase of the resistance campaign. "They're going to bomb our cities," she said breathlessly. "Millions of people will die." The human captain looked at his tactical maps. "The bombardment ships are controlled from that orbital platform. If we can destroy it, the ships won't know what targets to hit. But Minho is still getting into position. For his shot, it will take him hours to reach the mountain. Then we need to buy him those hours," said Captain Do-hyun. "Princess, I need you to order every anti-aircraft gun on the planet to fire at the orbital ships. It won't stop them, but it might make them more careful about their aim." Princess Nara nodded and ran to send the orders. But she knew that small ground weapons could not really hurt the big ships in space. They needed a miracle. High above the planet, the first Corvan bombardment ship finished charging its main cannon. The weapon was powerful enough to level a city block with each shot. The ship's targeting computer locked onto the capital city, where Princess Nara lived. But just as the ship was about to fire, something strange happened. Small flashes of light began appearing all around it. The ship's sensors detected thousands of small projectiles coming up from the planet's surface. The projectiles were not dangerous to the big ship, but they made the captain nervous. He decided to move to a safer distance before beginning the bombardment. This decision would save millions of lives, because it gave Minho the time he needed. On the highest mountain of Velthara, the human sniper was setting up his rifle for the most important shot of his life. The target was a space station moving at tremendous speed 300 kilometers above his head. He had never attempted anything like this before. But as he looked through his scope at the distant platform, Minho smiled. The word impossible was not in the human dictionary. The fate of an entire world was about to depend on one more perfect shot. Captain Do-hyun's plan was dangerous beyond belief. They would steal Corvan shuttles, fly them to the orbital command station, and fight their way inside while Minho provided support from the planet's surface. It was the kind of plan that should never work, but Princess Nara insisted on coming with them. "Princess, this is too dangerous," Captain Do-hyun said as they prepared the captured shuttles in a hidden valley. "If you die, your people will lose hope. If I stay safe in my palace while others fight for my world, I am not worthy to lead them," Nara replied. She was wearing combat armor that had belonged to her father. The metal plates were dented from old battles, but they still provided good protection. The assault team was small. Captain Do-hyun, Princess Nara, Corporal Ji-won, Private Hyun-woo, and 6 Veltharan Special Forces soldiers. Against them were thousands of Corvan troops on the orbital. Stationed Corporal Ji-won piloted the lead shuttle, while Private Hyun-woo handled the navigation. They had painted the shuttles with Corvan military colors and installed fake identification codes. From a distance, they would look like regular supply ships. "Remember," Captain Do-hyun told his team as they flew through space, "we have maybe 30 minutes before they figure out who we really are. Hit the command center fast and hard." 300 kilometers below them, Minho was in position on Mount Korath. the highest peak on Velthara. His rifle was aimed at the orbital station's main reactor. If the assault team could not disable the bombardment systems in time, he would have to destroy the entire station with everyone on it. The shot would be nearly impossible. The reactor was a target smaller than a dinner plate, hidden inside layers of armor and shielding. The station was moving at 8 kilometers per second in its orbit, and Minho would have to fire through 300 kilometers of atmosphere that bent and twisted light in unpredictable ways. But the human sniper had spent all night calculating the shot. His rifle's computer had run the numbers 1,000 times. There was a window of opportunity that lasted exactly 2.3 seconds when the reactor core would be lined up perfectly with a weak spot in the station's armor. "Firebase Echo is ready," Minho reported over the radio. "I have eyes on target." The stolen shuttles approached the orbital station's docking bays without being challenged. The Corvan guard saw the military markings and assumed they were bringing supplies or reinforcements. "Docking Bay 7 is open," Private Hyunwoo announced. "They're not even scanning us." But as soon as the shuttles landed inside the station, everything went wrong. Vice Commander Jackson had been expecting something like this. The human tactics were becoming predictable, small groups striking at important targets. It was exactly what he would do in their situation. Corvan soldiers in powered armor were waiting in the docking bay. They opened fire as soon as the shuttle doors opened. Princess Nara had never been in a real battle before. The sound of energy weapons was much louder than she had expected. The air filled with bright flashes as plasma bolts flew in every direction. But the humans fought like they had been born for war. Captain Do-hyun moved through the enemy fire like it was nothing, his rifle picking off Corvan soldiers with precise shots. Corporal Jiwon and Private Hyunwoo worked together like they shared the same brain, covering each other as they advanced through the station's corridors. "The command center is 3 levels up," Captain Do-hyun shouted over the sound of battle. "We need to move fast." The team fought their way through the station's winding passages. The Corvans had built their station like a fortress, with defensive positions at every turn. But they had not expected enemies who could think in 3 dimensions. The humans used the station's zero-gravity sections to attack from unexpected angles. They climbed along walls and ceilings, striking at enemies who were looking the wrong way. Princess Nara watched in amazement as human soldiers seemed to fly through the air, shooting with perfect accuracy even while spinning. But there were so many enemy soldiers. For every Corvan they defeated, 2 more appeared to take his place. "Captain," called Private Hyunwoo from his position at a computer terminal, "I can see the bombardment systems from here. They're charging up for a full planetary strike. We have maybe 10 minutes. 3 levels below them in the station's main command center, Vice Commander Jackson was watching the battle on his security screens. The humans were good, but they were outnumbered 50 to 1. Soon they would be dead, and the bombardment could continue. "Sir," said his weapons officer, "the planetary bombardment cannons are ready to fire." "Target their capital city first," Jackson ordered. "I want to see that palace burn," but as he spoke, his security chief pointed to one of the screens. "Sir, look at this. There's something on the planet's surface. A single heat signature on Mount Koreth." Jackson studied the image. It showed a tiny dot of warmth against the cold mountain rock. For a moment he could not understand what he was seeing. Then his blood turned to ice. "It's a sniper," he whispered. "They have a sniper targeting this station." He looked at the tactical display that showed the station's orbit. In 30 seconds they would pass directly over Mount Koreth. The angle would be perfect for a shot from the planet's surface. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered. "Change our orbit, immediately." But orbital stations were not built to change course quickly. The massive structure began to turn slowly, its engines fighting against the laws of physics. On Mount Koreth, Minho watched the station through his scope. He could see it starting to turn, but it was too late. The perfect moment had arrived. His finger tightened on the trigger just as Corvan patrol ships appeared in the sky above him. They had found his position and were coming to kill him. Plasma. Cannons began firing at the mountain peak, turning rock into glowing slag. But Minho ignored the death falling from the sky. All that mattered was the shot. His scope was locked onto the tiny reactor core 300 kilometers above. The target was smaller than a coin and moving faster than sound. The tungsten bullet left his rifle just as the first plasma bolt hit the mountain beside him. For 2.3 seconds, the projectile climbed through atmosphere and vacuum toward its impossible target. In the station's command center, Vice Commander Jackson watched the bullets approach on his sensors. The tiny piece of metal was so small that it barely showed up on the detection grid. "It will never penetrate our armor," his chief engineer said. "The reactor is protected by 6 meters of reinforced titanium." But as they watched, the bullet struck the station's hull at exactly the right spot. It punched through a microscopic gap in the armor plating, traveled down a maintenance shaft, and found the reactor core with surgical precision. The fusion bottle that contained the power of a star flickered and failed. For one terrible moment, all the energy that powered the orbital station tried to escape at once. The explosion tore through the station's superstructure like lightning through a tree. But somehow, impossibly, the command center where Princess, Nara, and the assault team were fighting survived. Minho's shot had been so precise that it destroyed only what needed to be destroyed. As the station died around them, the bombardment cannons fell silent forever. The threat to Velthara's cities was over. But the human sniper who had saved them all was gone, vaporized by enemy fire in the same instant that his bullet found its target. Princess Nara stood in the ruined command center and felt tears on her face. A man she had never met had given his life to save her world. She did not even know what he looked like. But she would never forget his name. Minho, the human who made impossible shots. The damaged orbital station spun slowly in space like a wounded giant. Emergency lights flashed red across its broken hull, and pieces of metal floated around it like deadly snow. Inside the command center, the real battle was about to begin. "Princess," Nara faced Vice Commander Jackson across the wide control room. The Corvin officer towered over her, his powered armor making him look like a walking tank. His plasma sword glowed with deadly energy, hot enough to cut through steel like butter. But Princess Nara was not afraid. She had been trained to fight since childhood. Her father had made sure she could defend herself against any enemy, no matter how big or strong they were. "You think killing my supreme commander makes you a hero, little princess?" Jackson snarled as he raised his sword. "But I still have enough ships to burn your pathetic world to ash." Around them, the battle raged between Captain Do-hyun's team and waves of Corvin soldiers. The humans were outnumbered 10-1, but they fought with the precision that had made them famous across the galaxy. Captain Do-hyun moved through enemy fire like a dancer, his rifle finding targets with impossible accuracy. Each shot he fired dropped an enemy soldier. He never wasted ammunition, never missed his mark. Corporal Jiwon was wounded, blood running down her arm from a plasma burn. But she kept fighting. She used her technical skills to hack into the station's systems, turning the Corvin's own security cameras against them. Private Hunwoo was pinned down behind a control console, but his fingers flew across his portable computer. He was trying to break into the orbital bombardment systems before they could destroy Velthara's cities. "The bombardment cannons are charging up," Hyunwoo called out over the sound of battle. "They're going to fire on the capital city in 8 minutes. Princess Nara dodged as Jackson's plasma sword whistled through the air where her head had been. The blade was so hot that she could feel it burning the air around her. "Your people are about to die, and there is nothing you can do to stop it," Jackson said with cruel satisfaction. "Maybe next time your species will think twice before resisting the Corvin Empire." But Nara had learned something important from watching. The humans fight. They never gave up, no matter how bad things looked. When faced with impossible odds, they found impossible solutions. She rolled under another sword strike and came up next to a damaged control panel. Sparks flew from the broken electronics, but Nara had an idea. She grabbed a piece of loose cable and waited for Jackson to attack again. The Corvin commander swung his sword in a wide arc, trying to cut her in half. But Nara jumped backward and threw the cable at his armor. The metal wire wrapped around his sword arm just as an electrical surge ran through the damaged panel. Lightning shot through the cable and into Jackson's powered armor. The alien commander screamed as electricity coursed through his body. His armor sparked and smoked, then went completely dead. Without power, the armor became a prison. Jackson could barely move under the weight of the dead metal plates. "Impossible," he gasped. "You are just a weak little alien girl." "Maybe," Nara replied as she picked up his dropped sword. "But I learned from humans that being small does not mean being weak." Across the command center, Captain Do-hyun was running, out of ammunition. His team had fought bravely, but there were just too many enemies. More Corvin soldiers poured into the room every minute. "Hyun-woo, can you reach the bombardment controls?" he shouted. "I need 30 seconds without getting shot at," the young soldier replied. Captain Do-hyun looked around the chaos of the battle. 30 seconds might as well be 30 hours. They were about to be overwhelmed completely. Then he remembered something Minho had given him before the mission. A small device that the sniper said would help if everything went wrong. "Use this only when there is no other choice," Minho had said. "It will link your rifle to my targeting computer for 60 seconds. You will shoot like I do." Captain Do-hyun activated the device. Suddenly, his rifle scope showed him things he had never seen before. He could see exactly where every enemy was hiding, even behind cover. He could predict where they would move before they moved. It was like having superhuman eyes. For 60 seconds, Captain Do-hyun fought like a machine built for war. Every shot hit its target perfectly. Every movement was exactly right. He moved through the enemy soldiers like they were standing still, his rifle speaking death with mechanical precision. The other humans stared in amazement as their captain became something beyond human, but they understood what was happening. Minho's ghost was guiding his hands, helping them one last time. The incredible display of marksmanship gave Private Hyun-woo the time he needed. He dove for the main computer console and began typing faster than his fingers had ever moved before. The Corvin computer system was different from human technology, but Hyun-woo had studied it during their flight to the station. His fingers found the right commands, dancing across the alien keyboard like a musician playing a perfect song. "I'm in," he announced. "I can see the bombardment control systems." But alarms started sounding throughout the station. The computer had detected his intrusion and was trying to lock him out. "Princess," Captain Do-hyun called out, his supernatural accuracy fading as Minho's device ran out of power. "We need those weapons offline now." Princess Nara looked down at Vice Commander Jackson, trapped in his dead armor like a bug in a metal shell. The Corvin commander's eyes were filled with hate and fear. "You cannot stop the bombardment," he wheezed. "The firing sequence has already started. In 3 minutes, your capital city will be nothing but a crater." But Nara smiled as she studied the plasma sword in her hands. The weapon was still connected to the station's power grid through its charging port. "Hyun-woo," she called out. "Can you overload the weapon systems through the power grid?" The young human looked up from his computer work. "Maybe, but I would need access to the main power junction." Princess Nara raised the plasma sword and drove it deep into the central control panel. Electricity arced between the weapon and the station's main systems. Warning lights flashed as power surged through circuits that were never meant to handle that much energy. "Is that good enough?" she asked. Hyun-woo's fingers flew over his keyboard, following the power surge through the station's electrical system. "Perfect. I can trace the overload right back to the weapon controls." He typed in a series of commands that sent the electrical surge racing through the bombardment system's targeting computers. One by one, the orbital cannons that were aimed at Velthara's cities went offline. But the power overload did not stop there. It spread through the communication systems that connected the orbital station to the Corvin fleet below. Ships that had been waiting for bombardment orders suddenly found themselves cut off from their command structure. In the confusion, some ship captains thought they were under attack and began firing at other Corvin vessels. The disciplined invasion fleet dissolved into chaos as ships fought each other instead of the planet below. Vice Commander Jackson watched his forces destroy themselves on the command center's screens. Years of planning and preparation were falling apart in minutes. "This cannot be happening," he whispered. "We are the Corvin Empire. We do not lose to primitive aliens and a handful of humans." But Princess Nara had learned something important during the long battle for her world. Victory was not about having the biggest guns or the most soldiers. It was about never giving up. no matter how impossible the situation looked. You lost. The moment you underestimated us, she told the defeated Corvan commander. Humans taught us that there is no such thing as impossible. There are only problems that have not been solved yet. Through the command center's broken windows, she could see the lights of Corvan ships exploding in the distance. The invasion fleet was tearing itself apart with friendly fire and confusion. The war was over. Her world was free. And somewhere in the ruins of Mount Korath, a human sniper's final shot had made it all possible. 3 months after the Battle of Mount Korath, Princess Nara stood in the Great Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime, the neutral planet where the galaxy's most important treaties were signed. Today she would speak not as a desperate princess fighting for her world's survival, but as Queen Nara of Velthara, ruler of a planet that had shocked the galaxy by defeating the mighty Corvan Empire. The hall was filled with representatives from hundreds of different alien species. They had all come to see the young queen who had turned a certain defeat into an impossible victory. But Nara knew the real hero of the story was not in the room. He was buried under tons of melted rock on a mountain peak, still holding the rifle that had saved her world. Vice Commander Jackson sat at the Corvan delegation table. His armor was gone, replaced by the simple gray clothing of a defeated officer. The proud empire he had served was broken and scattered. Their invasion fleet was destroyed. Their supreme commander was dead, and it had all been undone by one human's perfect shot. "Your Majesty," said the Galactic Council's chief mediator, "the Corvan Empire has agreed to pay full reparations for the damage caused to Velthara. They have also signed a binding treaty promising never to attack your world again." Queen Nara nodded gracefully. "The people of Velthara accept these terms, but we also want something else." The mediator looked curious. "What else do you require?" "We want the galaxy to remember how this war really ended. We want them to know about Staff Sergeant Lee Minho, the human sniper who made the impossible shot that changed everything." A murmur ran through the assembly hall. Everyone had heard different versions of the story. Some said the human had shot down starships with a single bullet. Others claimed he could hit targets on different planets. The truth was amazing enough without the additions. Queen Nara activated a holographic display that showed the exact details of Minho's final shot. The mathematics appeared in the air above the assembly. Distance, wind speed, target velocity, atmospheric distortion. The numbers proved that what the human sniper had accomplished should have been physically impossible. "This human soldier took a shot that our best computer models said had a 0% chance of success," Queen Nara explained. "He fired a tungsten bullet 300 kilometers through atmosphere and vacuum to hit a target smaller than your fist. And he did it while enemy ships were destroying the mountain around him." The alien delegates stared at the numbers in stunned silence. Several of them began calculating the shot for themselves, trying to find some way to explain how it could have worked. "The humans call this impossible shot the Minho Doctrine," Queen Nara continued. "It means that precision and determination can overcome any advantage in numbers or technology. They have proven this doctrine true on dozens of battlefields across the galaxy." From his seat at the Corvan table, Jackson spoke up. His voice was bitter but respectful. "Your Majesty speaks the truth. We came to Velthara with overwhelming force. We had superior technology, unlimited resources, and battle plans that had conquered 50 worlds, but we had never fought humans before." He paused and looked around the assembly hall. "Humans do not fight the way other species fight. They do not follow the rules of warfare that the rest of us understand. They take impossible risks and make impossible shots. They turn disadvantages into advantages, and they never, ever give up." The assembly hall was completely quiet now. Every delegate was thinking about what this meant for their own worlds. If humans could help a small planet defeat a galactic empire, what else might they be capable of? Captain Do-hyun, now wearing the uniform of a marshal in the Veltharan military, stood to address the assembly. "Your Honors, Queen Nara has asked me to speak about the human approach to warfare. We do not seek conquest or glory. We fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves, and we are very good at it." He activated another holographic display. This one showed dozens of human military operations across the galaxy. On world after world, Small teams of human soldiers had achieved victories that should have been impossible. The Corvan Empire was not the first to underestimate human capabilities, Marshal Dohyun continued. The Zephyrian hegemony made the same mistake when they tried to enslave the mining colonies on Kepler Prime. The Crystalline Collective learned the same lesson when they attacked the peaceful farmers on New Terra. Images flashed in the air showing human snipers, human pilots, human engineers, and human tacticians achieving impossible victories. Each story was different, but they all had the same ending: humans refusing to accept defeat. But we do not seek war, Marshal Dohyun said. We prefer peace. The human mercenary companies are not conquest fleets. We are insurance policies. When good people face impossible odds, they can call on us for help. A delegate from the Centauri Republic raised a tentacle to ask a question. Marshal, how do we know that humans will not use these capabilities against peaceful worlds? Queen Nara answered before Marshal Dohyun could speak. Because I have seen how humans fight. They do not attack the innocent. They protect them. Staff Sergeant Minho died to save people he had never met on a world that was not his home. That tells you everything you need to know about human character. The peace treaty signing ceremony took place the next day. But the real significance of the gathering was not the end of one war. It was the beginning of a new age in galactic politics. Within weeks of the Nexus Prime Assembly, dozens of worlds were requesting human military advisors. The small human military academies found themselves flooded with applications from alien students who wanted to learn the tactics that had defeated the Corvan Empire. But perhaps the most important change was happening on Velthara itself. Queen Nara had authorized the construction of a monument to Staff Sergeant Minho in the center of the capital city. The statue showed the human sniper in his final moment, rifle raised toward the stars, taking the shot that saved a world. Every day, young Veltharans came to see the monument. Queen Nara often found children there, asking their parents to explain how one soldier could change the fate of an entire planet. She always told them the same story, about a human who never missed his target, about a shot that traveled 300 kilometers through space to find its mark, about a soldier who chose to die rather than let good people suffer. But the monument was not just about the past. It was about the future. Next to the statue, construction had begun on the Minho Academy, where human and alien soldiers would train together. They would learn the tactics that had saved Velthara, and they would carry those lessons to other worlds that needed protection. Marshal Dohyun served as the Academy's first commandant. He taught courses with names like precision warfare and asymmetric tactics. But the most popular class was simply called the impossible shot. In that class, students learned the mathematics of Minho's final shot. They studied the wind patterns on Mount Korath, the orbital mechanics of the space station, and the physics of tungsten bullets traveling at 17% light speed. But they also learned something more important. They learned that the word impossible was just another problem to be solved. Years passed, and the story of the human sniper spread throughout the galaxy. In the military academies of a dozen species, cadets studied the Battle of Mount Korath as an example of how individual skill and courage could change the course of history. The Corvan Empire, humbled by their defeat, began hiring human military advisors to teach their own forces. They learned that true strength came not from superior numbers or technology, but from the willingness to attempt what others thought could not be done. And on quiet nights, when Queen Nara stood on her palace balcony and looked up at the stars, she sometimes thought she could still see the flash of light that marked Minho's final shot. A brief moment of brilliance that proved one person with the right skills and the right heart could indeed change the fate of worlds. The alien princess, who had once watched in awe, had become a queen who ensured the galaxy would never forget that humans did not just fight wars, they redefined what victory meant. In classrooms across the galaxy, military instructors now taught the Minho Doctrine as the foundation of modern warfare, and somewhere in the ruins of Mount Korath, buried under tons of rock and metal, a human sniper's rifle rested in eternal silence, its work complete. The legend would live forever.